Greetings, fellow travellers. Tonight, we descend not into the marble forums or the crowded markets of Rome, but into the hidden arteries beneath it, the tunnels where unseen workers kept the greatest city in the world alive. Before we go down there, dim the lights, let the room fall quiet, and if you find yourself drawn into these hidden histories, a like and subscribe keeps this journey alive. Forget the glory of emperors and generals for a moment. Down here, survival depended not on politics or conquest, but on sweat, grit, and lungs strong enough to breathe the heavy air of stone and water. Few who entered these shafts came back unchanged, and some never returned at all. Imagine lowering yourself into a narrow shaft, the world above shrinking into a pale circle of light. The rope scratches your palms, your shoulders already damp from the mist curling upward. The city fades quickly, the clatter of carts, the voices of merchants, the cries of children. Within moments, all that remains is the cold echo of dripping water. Your sandals find the last rung of iron, slick beneath your foot, and then you are in. The tunnel swallows you whole. The air is cooler, damp, carrying the sharp smell of moss and something older, like the breath of a cavern that has waited centuries to be disturbed. The torch in your hand flickers uncertainly. Its glow stretches just far enough to reveal the curved masonry walls, glistening with moisture, and the thin trickle of water weaving along the floor. Already, the cold seeps into your bones. The ceiling presses low, forcing you to hunch. When you move, the stone brushes your shoulders. Every droplet that falls from above lands like ice on your skin, tracing its way down your back before vanishing into your tunic. This is not work for the faint-hearted. The foreman has handed you your tools, a scraper and a chisel, their metal edges dulled from endless use. You grip them tightly, knowing you will need every ounce of strength to chip away at the mineral crust lining the walls. Without you, and the few who crawl beside you, the aqueduct would choke. Rome's fountains would run dry. The rhythm begins. Scrape, pull, toss, scrape, pull, toss. Each movement echoes hollow against the walls, a reminder that above your head the city feasts, prays and sleeps, oblivious to the labour flowing beneath their feet. The aqueduct is alive in its own way. It gathers more than water leaves, sticks, animal bones. Once you found the head of a goat wedged in a bend of the channel, its glassy eyes staring up in permanent shock. Down here, surprises are never welcome, but they are always present. You pause for breath, shoulders aching, torchlight dimming. The tunnel whispers with the constant murmur of water, indifferent to the hands that clear its path. You tighten your grip on the chisel. The work resumes. The day begins above ground, in the pale light before the forum comes alive. You gather at the maintenance yard with the other cleaners, a small group in plain tunics, hair bound back, carrying the same weary expressions. The foreman walks the line, handing out tools and checking ropes, the way a centurion might inspect soldiers before battle. The aqueduct is a marvel to the city, a ribbon of stone carrying water from the hills far beyond its walls. To you, it is a maze that swallows daylight, a place you enter as yourself and leave smelling of wet stone and smoke. Each entrance shaft is a doorway into that other world. You strip down to your work tunic, folding your outer clothes into a bundle. Sandals are laced tighter than usual. You take the chisel, the scraper, and the small leather pouch for carrying debris. The tools are worn and blunt, but in these tunnels, sharp edges dull quickly against the stubborn lime that clings to the stone. The shaft yawns open before you, just wide enough for one man to climb down. You loop the rope through your arm and step onto the iron rungs set into the wall. The voices above fade. With each rung you descend. A final footstep drops you into a low chamber where the water channel begins. Here, you pause to light the torch. The flame sputters before catching, sending shadows racing along the walls. You taste smoke on your tongue as you hold it close to the stone. This is the moment between worlds, when the sunlit city becomes a memory and the steady heartbeat of the aqueduct takes over. You crouch low and begin to move forward. The sound of dripping water echoes ahead. Every movement is measured to conserve energy. The foreman's orders still ring in your head. Clear the blockages in Section 9 before the midday surge. The midday surge is when the upstream gates are opened, sending a stronger current through the channels. Being caught inside during that is a story told only about the dead. The air is already heavy, touched with the scent of minerals and moss. You know the way by heart, counting turns and low arches, without needing to see them clearly. The torch hisses when a drop of water strikes its flame, but it keeps burning. You find the first stretch of wall crusted with pale deposits. The chisel meets the stone with a sharp tap. Tiny shards of lime fall into the water. The loop begins in earnest now. Scrape, pull, toss. The sound becomes a rhythm, a kind of workman's song, echoing through the dark. You follow the channel deeper, the ceiling lowering until the torch nearly scrapes the stone above. The water is ankle deep now, cold enough to numb your toes, moving in a steady trickle toward the city. The sound of it is constant, but you know how to listen for the difference between flowing water and something blocking the way. A few turns ahead, you hear it. A muffled gurgle, not the clean sound of running water, but a muted, choked murmur, the kind that says there is something wedged in the current. You quicken your crawl, the torchlight flickering over the curved walls, until the passage narrows to a point where the water swirls in a small eddy. There it is, a knot of rotting leaves and broken twigs, wedged against a bend in the channel. The smell reaches you before your hands do, a damp, sour scent mixed with something sharper. You push the torch higher, and the light reveals a small, pale shape caught in the debris. At first, it looks like a piece of driftwood, but then you see the curve of bone, a bird, half decayed, its feathers plastered flat by the water. You have found worse in these tunnels. Goats, dogs, even the occasional unlucky cat, washed in from some distant culvert. You grip the scraper and wedge it into the tangle. The debris resists at first, held tight by the flow, but you work it loose in slow, careful motions, so you do not damage the stone. The bundle comes free with a wet sigh, spinning in the current before drifting toward your pouch. You scoop it up and stuff it into the leather bag, its weight heavier than it looks. This is not the worst part of the work. The worst part is knowing that every blockage is a threat to the city's lifeblood. You rinse the scraper in the current, watching the water clear. The flow changes instantly. The gurgle becomes a clean rush, the sound you want to hear. The channel seems to breathe easier. You sit back for a moment, listening to the water's voice return to normal. The torch crackles. Shadows bend and stretch along the curved wall. You take one deep breath, as much as the stale air will allow, and turn your body forward again. This was only the first. The aqueduct is long, and each curve can hide another choke point. You adjust your grip on the tools, feel the grit of stone dust on your palms, and start crawling toward the next bend. The next stretch of tunnel feels tighter, as if the stone has closed in over the years. The torchlight catches something pale on the walls ahead. Not debris this time, but the thick, crusted growth of limescale. It blooms in rough, uneven layers, clinging to every surface the water touches. These deposits slow the current, narrow the channel, and if left too long, will choke the flow entirely. You kneel in the shallow water and set the torch in a small iron hook, hammered into the wall. Your hands are free now, and the cold settles into your fingers as you take up the chisel and hammer. The first strike rings through the tunnel, the sharp sound bouncing from wall to wall. Chips of lime scatter into the water like bits of bone. This is work that does not rush. You wedge the chisel's edge under a thick lip of deposit, tap it loose, and pry it away in slabs. Each piece falls with a splash, clouding the water with white dust. The stone beneath is dark and slick, worn smooth by centuries of flow. Minutes pass like this, each one marked by the same rhythm. Strike, tap, pry, splash. Your shoulders burn from the awkward angle. Your knees ache from kneeling on uneven stone. The work is as much about patience as strength. Push too hard, and you could crack the aqueduct wall. A mistake that would cost you more than the day's pay. The air grows heavier the longer you stay in one place. The torch sputters when your shadow leans too close. You pause to stretch your back, feeling the grit of stone dust between your teeth when you breathe. Above your head, a droplet of water falls in perfect rhythm, landing on the same spot on your arm over and over, until it feels like the tunnel itself is keeping time. The deposit slowly gives way, revealing more of the clean stone beneath. When you finally stand, the channel looks wider, the water running smoother against the walls. You rinse your hands in the current, the cold biting at your knuckles, and take up the torch again. You mark the cleaned section with a small scratch on the wall, a sign for the next crew that the work here is done. Then you move on, the sound of water guiding you forward. The tunnel bends out of sight ahead, and you know that with each turn, the work will begin all over again. The next bend carries you deeper than before. The air feels cooler here, and the channel walls glisten with a thin sheen of running water. You are focused on the curve ahead, listening for the telltale sound of a blockage. When something else reaches your ears, it is not the steady rush of the channel. It is a low, building roar. You freeze, torch held high. The sound swells, echoing through the stone, and you know instantly what it means. Somewhere upstream, a gate has been opened. The midday surge is coming. You move fast, shoving the chisel into your belt and gripping the torch in your teeth to free both hands. The water lapping at your ankles is already rising, spilling over your calves. You push forward at a crouch, aiming for the next vertical shaft where you can climb out. But the roar grows louder, and the air in the tunnel feels as if it is being pushed ahead of the flood. The first wave hits like a living thing, a cold wall of water that slams into your legs and almost knocks you flat. You brace yourself against the wall, digging your fingers into the wet stone, and feel the current straining to drag you back the way you came. The torchlight wavers wildly, throwing broken shadows across the channel. Your breath comes in short bursts as you fight for balance. The water is higher now, swirling at your waist. The thought flashes through your mind that if you lose your grip, the current will take you into the black belly of the aqueduct, where no one will find you until the city smells the change in its water. You force yourself sideways, inching toward a shallow alcove where the wall juts out. Here, the flow is weaker, just enough to let you keep your footing. You press yourself into the curve, chest against the stone, letting the surge rush past. The roar fills the tunnel, drowning out every other sound. It lasts less than a minute, though in the dark it feels much longer. The water gradually lowers, still swift but no longer threatening to tear you away. You stay pressed against the wall until your breathing slows. When you finally step back into the channel, your legs are heavy, and your hands ache from clinging to the stone. You retrieve the torch, now dimming, and press on. The aqueduct does not care that you almost drowned. It still needs cleaning, and you are still the one holding the chisel. The rush of the surge lingers in your muscles long after the water settles. Each step forward feels heavier, as though the current left its weight behind. The cold has sunk into your bones, and now the torch's heat feels distant, doing little more than lighting your path. Your shoulders ache from hours of crouching, and your knees are raw from crawling over stone that has been worn smooth by centuries of running water. Every movement is deliberate, not from caution, but from exhaustion. You have learned the pace you can keep without collapsing, the rhythm that will carry you through a full day in the tunnels. The air is damp and close, and the scent of wet limestone clings to your breath. You take a shallow sip from your water skin, careful not to drink too much. There are no easy stops for relief in the aqueduct, and you have no desire to spend extra hours in these walls for personal comfort. The others above ground might eat bread or fruit in the sun, but here, a day's work is measured in scraped walls and cleared channels, not in meals. You come to another stretch of lime build-up. The chisel meets stone with a dull ring, the sound swallowed by the tunnel. Your hands are blistered now, the skin raised in pale domes that will burst before the day is done. You work without thinking, letting your body carry on while your mind drifts. It is easy to lose yourself in the repetition. Strike, tap, pry, splash. The water takes each broken shard away, carrying it toward the city. You imagine the people above, drawing water from fountains, filling amphorae, never knowing where the clean flow begins. They do not see you in the channel. They do not hear the endless ringing of your chisel. A drop of water falls on your neck, startling you back into the present. You roll your shoulders, wincing at the stiffness, and shift to the next section. The torch smokes and hisses when a droplet lands on it, the light bending in the swirl of steam. You measure time by the burn in your arms and the dimming of the flame. When your back protests, you stop just long enough to stretch, knowing too long a rest will make the next step even harder. The work is slow, but there is no other way. The aqueduct demands patience, and so you give it, one strike at a time. The tunnel ahead narrows, its ceiling dipping so low you must crawl on hands and knees. The water is shallow here, only a thin sheet running over slick stone, but the air feels different. It is warmer, heavier, as if it has been trapped too long without movement. You keep going, the torch held close to the ground to guide your hands. The flame wavers oddly, not from a draught, but as if it is struggling to breathe. You feel the change in your own chest, each breath coming with a faint pressure, as though the air carries less to fill your lungs. You know the signs. This section has not been cleaned in months, maybe longer, and the air has grown stale. The others talk about pockets like these, where gases collect in low spaces. A man who lingers too long can faint before he realizes he is in danger. Some never wake again. You push forward a little farther, trying to gauge the distance to the next shaft. Your arms feel heavier than they should. The torchlight blurs at the edges. The smell is metallic now, a taste on your tongue rather than a scent in your nose. You drop lower, trying to stay calm, but the close walls press harder on your mind. There is no time to finish this stretch today. You back away slowly, dragging the torch behind you to keep the light between yourself and the narrowing dark. Each movement sends a small shock through your shoulders, your legs trembling with the effort. When the air begins to taste cooler, you risk a deeper breath. Relief rushes in, but it carries no joy. Only the knowledge of how close you came to joining the list of names spoken in low voices among the workers. You sit back on your heels for a moment, letting your body steady. The torch burns stronger here, the flame standing taller, the smoke drifting upward instead of curling low. The worst of the stale pocket is behind you, but the thought remains. Some dangers in the aqueduct are loud and sudden, like a surge of water. Others are quiet, creeping in so slowly you only notice when your strength is already slipping away. You gather your tools, adjust the weight of the pouch on your hip, and continue forward, knowing that each turn in the channel could hide another hazard like it. The torchlight catches movement ahead, a flicker that is gone before you can fix your eyes on it. You pause, one hand on the wet stone, listening. The steady trickle of water continues, but underneath it is another sound, faint and quick, like claws against rock. You advance slowly, the light stretching farther down the curve of the channel. The space widens here, the ceiling high enough to stand, and the water pools deeper, before running off again. That is where you see them. 2 rats, their fur slick with damp, perched on a chunk of driftwood that has lodged against the wall. Their eyes glint in the firelight, unblinking. The larger one slips into the water, paddling to the far side, and disappears into a gap in the stone. The smaller stays where it is, its body tense. You know better than to reach toward it. Rats here will bite if cornered, and a bite in these tunnels can fester before you ever see daylight again. You set the torch into the wall hook and use the scraper to prod the driftwood free. It shifts slowly, breaking loose from the current, and the rat leaps away into the shadows. The wood floats toward you, trailing scraps of moss and twigs. You catch it and place it in your pouch, feeling the slime coat your fingers. Sometimes it is not rats but snakes, drawn to the cool water and the dark. Once, you found a tangle of pale eggs hidden in a dry ledge, the shells soft and damp. The older workers speak of eels making their way in from the river, though you have yet to see one yourself. You keep your torch close as you move forward again, watching the walls for movement. The vermin are not as dangerous as a surge or a bad air pocket, but they are quick and unpredictable. In the narrowest sections, you cannot pass without brushing against them, and here there is no space for surprise. The water runs clearer past this point, and the sound of claws fades into the distance. Still, the hairs on your neck stay raised, the memory of those glinting eyes lingering long after the torchlight swallows the spot where they watched you. The channel begins to slope upward, the air slowly shifting from heavy damp to something lighter. You follow the curve until the walls open into a small chamber beneath a vertical shaft. The circle of light above is sharp and bright after hours in the torch's glow, a piece of sky framed in stone. You set your tools down and climb the iron rungs hammered into the wall. Each one is cool under your hands, the rust leaving faint stains on your skin. The light grows warmer with each pull upward until you break through into the open air. The city greets you with sound. Distant cartwheels rattle over stone. Merchants call to passing customers. And somewhere, a child laughs. After the constant echo of water in the tunnel, the noise feels almost too large, as if the world has been turned up too loud. You sit on the edge of the shaft for a moment, letting the sun find your face. The warmth soaks into your skin, chasing away some of the cold that has clung to you since the first descent. A breeze carries the scent of bread from a nearby bakery, a reminder that life above has continued without you. The overseer passes by, offering a short nod, but no words. To him, your work is expected, not remarkable. The citizens who fill their jars at the fountains will never think of the hands that keep their water clear. The aqueduct flows, and so the city lives. That is enough for them. You take a swallow from your water skin, this time letting it sit on your tongue before swallowing. It tastes cleaner here, fresher than it ever does underground. The break is short, only long enough to roll the stiffness from your shoulders and flex your cramped fingers. When the shadow creeps back over your feet, you stand and descend again. The daylight fades behind you, replaced by the torch's smaller circle of light. The sound of the city falls away until there is only the water again, whispering along the stone. The torch feels heavier in your hand now, the heat close enough to sting your knuckles. The tunnel seems darker than before, the edges of the light shrinking, but you know that is just fatigue pressing on your eyes. This last stretch is familiar, a trouble spot where the water slows after a sharp turn. The air here is colder, and the floor of the channel slopes unevenly, forcing you to brace with every movement. Your knees protest each crawl forward, and the skin on your hands is rubbed raw where the scraper's handle has bitten into your grip. The blockage is not large, just a tangle of sticks and weeds caught in a narrow gap. But it is enough to alter the current. You kneel in the shallow water, setting the torch in its hook, and work the scraper's edge into the mess. It comes apart in small pieces, each one carried quickly downstream once it is free. When the last of it is gone, The water runs smoother, its voice changing from a strained gurgle to a steady rush. You pause to listen, letting the sound settle in your chest. This is the measure of your work. Not praise or thanks, but the simple change in the way the current moves. The torchlight trembles when you pick it up again. You turn back toward the nearest shaft, counting each step, until the wall of stone breaks into a pale square above. Climbing feels slower this time. Your legs leaden, but the promise of the surface pulls you upward. Night has fallen by the time you emerge. The air is cooler, and the city's noise is softer now, reduced to the clink of amphorae and the murmur of voices in shadowed streets. Lamps burn in windows, their light spilling across the stone. Somewhere in the distance, a fountain pours steadily into its basin, fed by water that passed through the channels you cleared today. You sling the pouch of debris over your shoulder and make your way toward the yard. Tomorrow will bring another descent, another loop through the stone veins of the city. The aqueduct never rests, and neither do those who keep it alive. When the day is over and the tools are set aside, there is little to mark your work except the steady voice of the water. Rome sleeps under the same stars that have guided travellers and soldiers. But beneath its streets, the channels run on without pause. Each drop that splashes into a public fountain has passed through hands like yours, unseen, but necessary. The life of an aqueduct cleaner is not one of glory. No statues will be carved for the men who scrape lime from the stone or pull dead birds from the current. There will be no parades for those who crawl in darkness so the city above can drink in the light. The marble baths and bustling markets depend on your labour, but no one in those places will know your name. Still, there is a quiet pride in the work. You have walked where most citizens would not dare to go. You have felt the pulse of the city in the rush of the current and seen the stonework that has carried water for generations. You know its sounds and silences, its narrow bends and wide vaults. You know how quickly it can turn from a lifeline to a threat. In the stillness after a shift, you can hear the water beyond the yard's walls, moving toward the heart of Rome. It will travel through fountains and cisterns, through kitchens and wash basins, through the marble halls of senators and the courtyards of tenement blocks. It will quench thirst, wash wounds, and cool the foreheads of the sick. You will return tomorrow, as you did today, to clear the way. You will descend again into the damp dark, following the whisper of the current through the stone veins of the city. And when you emerge into daylight again, the city will still not see you, but it will feel your work in every drop. If you have journeyed with me this far, you have walked in the shadowed channels of ancient Rome. Tell me, would you have taken this job or left it for another? Share your thoughts. And if you wish to step into more hidden corners of history, like and subscribe so you never miss the next descent.